The songs we love, the songs we hate, the songs we've never heard. What do they all have in common? Music speaks to us in ways we may not realize. Discover how to use what you already have to get what you really want. You're listening to Power of a Positive Playlist on the OBBM Network. Here's your host, John Chester.
Settle down, Doug. And welcome. Hello, this is John Chester, the Power of Positive Playlist. Thanks for dropping in. Several years ago, I did a video that got thousands of hits and a lot of comments from people who were seriously searching for an answer. And it seems trivial on the subject, but the more I've studied it, the more I found out that this has some real issues. And the subject is, of all things, earworms. Earworms. Now, we call them earworms because they're kind of like that Star Trek Wrath of Khan, the little bugs that go inside the good guy's ears from Khan, and it's bleh, and it's nasty. Nevertheless, earworms can be just as bothersome in their own way, and they can cause real problems for people when they're trying to focus, when they're trying to move on, when they're trying to get over trauma. So I want to touch on a lot of this because, again, the whole topic of this is the Power of Positive Playlist. And people are doing it wrong. People are really botching how they're listening to music, even still. And I don't mean just in the churches, for example, where they're still doing praise and worship music. Yeah, they haven't gotten over that little ego boost. Or, of course, playlists that's coming across the radio, but it's also in commercials and what have you. So we're going to talk a lot about how to master the music that's in your head, because it's one thing to manage music outside, but this is music in your head that you've invited in, and it's playing endlessly. You'll wake up in the middle of the night, and it plays. You're stumbling to go to the bathroom, and there's that song. You wake up in the morning, boom. You're trying to focus on your studies. You're trying to do your job. You're trying to manage your relationships. And what? There's that song. No, that's outside control in reality. Even though it's inside you, it's outside control. So, yeah, this is not the first time I've covered this. And when I was working in the hospitals, I would get people coming up that had psych issues, that had very pronounced earworm issues. Now, first of all, let's talk about that word earworm. What is it? Okay, it's a cognitive itch, all right? And it's caused by incomplete tasks creating tension, and the brain creates this memory loop, and it's itching back. Now, also, when that happens, if the mind is at rest, which I mentioned in my video a few years back, if the mind is idle, you'll start getting these loops and they'll start popping in. So what kind of music sticks? It's kind of individualistic, but there are some parameters. One, children's songs. The 70s, it was the Mana song. Yeah, I'm not going to sing it because I'm not trying to give you a hook. But also simple play songs. Journey's song that has the na, 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 na at the end. By the way, that's one of the oldest songs in history. I don't mean the Journey version. I just mean that little na, 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 na at the end. That has shown up in some historical records and cave art and such, in such a way that we know that na, 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 na is a child play thing, a little mocking moment or a little child song that they play, and it's real old. So these simple play songs stick. Songs with really strong hooks. These hooks stick in the brain. They're not called hooks for no reason, right? They have a reason, and they hook into the brain in such a way that they stick, and you're trying to get rid of them. Next, high emotional investment. Now, please get this. You don't have to love the song for it to stick. You don't have to hate the song for it to stick. It can be either one or kind of both. You can have love-hate songs that, I used to love that song, but it reminds me of my old boyfriend, or I used to love that song, but it just, I've gotten tired of it. It'll hook. It'll hook, baby, and it will stick with you. You'll notice one thing, or something I've noticed, I should say, is that songs like meditational, that are just almost ambient, they don't stick. Why? There's no hook. Meditational songs have no hook to them. And so therefore you don't have, gosh, I have that meditational song. No, you don't, because there's no hook and there's no catch for it to keep going. Something else about earworms, though. They're songs that play repeatedly, yeah, but it's not just the music. Other things can repeat. Because of my ADHD tendencies, I had words stick in my head. I would learn a new word, or I'd be challenged by a new word, or just it would stick. Gosh, I was about 16, 15, and the word anti-disestablishmentarian, which was a big thing back in the 70s. It was, at the time at least, one of the longest words you could find in the dictionary. And so it was always there for quite a while, and it took me some work to get rid of it. Other things that hook. People. Okay, people get hooked on people. They get fixated. They become stalkers. Maybe. Not necessarily. It can come across rather innocuously to where you're going, yeah, best girlfriend I ever had, the best friend I ever had was this person, and there was never anybody better. And you'll fixate. You've now locked that person as a trophy, as a thing in your life that sticks, and nothing else will ever compare. Regardless if it's a fact or not, it will stick permanently unless you take it out of that trophy case, take it off of your throne. 2, events. Now, this can be a trauma thing, PTSD and such, as we'll touch later. Events loop, good ones and bad ones. I've got one time loop that is more of a place and the time I spent at that place, so it's kind of an event. But that event is a pleasant one, and I have to keep myself from being distracted by it, because otherwise I'll just check out and I'm like, no, it's not going to help. So I've got things to do. I don't have time for that kind of looping. So places and words, as I've already said, so it's whatever you get fixated on. And they become a type of earworm, a kind of fixation that will play. And you lose control if something is playing on you. Remember, you play on the world. The world should not play on you. I knew a girl back in high school when I was riding the bus 23, and this girl would get onto the bus and she just looked exhausted. And she'd flop down and complain about her latest earworm. And she's, gosh, I just can't get it out of my head. And she looked ragged. And she was a nice girl, but she was just having a tough time of it. And it turned out later on we found out about her home life, and it was rather tragic, and it explained a lot of the type of earworms and repetitive natures that she was having. So who can get them? Well, 98% of the people get them. So if you've got them, congratulations, you're normal. 98% of people get earworms. Men and women get them equally. But women, they seem to last longer, and it aggravates them more. Also, people with OCD, people with mood disorders, people with anxiety, PTSD, and people who are exposed to music more frequently. So if you work in a record store, if you're producing music, if you play music, it'll loop on you because you're not done with it. So it can be triggered by mood, and it can be triggered by melody. TV and radio commercials are major culprits in it, and I believe, by the way, they are designed to be that way. It's no surprise. They write these songs to be hooks that you're always carrying around with you, and their product is around, even though their commercial ran maybe during your favorite show, and now you're driving to work or you're trying to jog or whatever it is, and what do you got to do? You hear that hook. Let me play you this right now. I'm going to play you something. It's a very old commercial. It's from, 50 years ago almost, but they were using this concept really well. And I have to give them kudos for their psych studies on this. This is a cigarette, of course. Cigarettes were allowed at this time, cigarette commercials. And they wrote this jingle and they didn't complete it. Why? Because completion is all about finishing. Here we go.
You can take Salem out of the country, but you can't take the country out of Salem. You can take Salem out of the country, but you can't take the country out of Salem. You can take Salem out of the country, but you can't take the country out of Salem. You can take Salem out of the country, but...
So I believe, again, that commercials are created to create earworms. That's visually and auditorily. And how an earworm, so to speak, this sounds even more gross, an eyeworm, shows up is that there is a conformity that is built from watching so much TV and the commercials and the shows and all this. And you go out into reality and your yard doesn't look like the Brady Bunch's yard, which, by the way, had AstroTurf on it. Or it doesn't, the house doesn't look like these facade houses that were actually, or the CGI houses. You don't live this CGI life. And it gives people a degree of comparison, envy, and it makes them sick. It's a type of eyeworm. So why earworms disturb us? Why do they disturb us? One, repetition is distracting. Repetition is distracting. You're trying to get up in the morning and go shower. You're trying to make your coffee or tea. You're trying to get it going in the day. And unfortunately, you've got Elvira or Mariah Carey's Christmas song going on. And that's just not your vibe right now. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But repetition is so bad. And it wears a groove. It's like scratching yourself over and over again to where you'll start drawing blood. You'll damage the skin. And it's a type of self-wound. Healthy people have a varied playlist. An earworm interrupts that process. When I've done my research, healthy people listen to some jazz, rock, rap, whatever it is they want to hear. And it's broad. They don't listen to just one. Now, of course, younger kids, you'll always find that they listen to just a couple of genres. The older you get, the broader it gets, because you'll get sick of listening to, say, with my generation, you get sick of listening to CCR or Queen. Yeah, you do. Yeah, because there's other music out there, and there's a lot of fabulous music. And that's one of the reasons I like streaming platforms, is because they're built to introduce new music, and I let them. And yeah, a large majority of it, I'm chucking. Oh, I don't need that. Ugh, that's horrible. But then I'll bring in some fresh stuff to keep the earworms away. Two, it locks in a mood. Like I was saying, when the earworm hits, and when it hits, it's like it's already been going on for a while, and you don't really know it. It's just playing, and you're going about your day. And you're doing your job, you're driving around, you're talking to somebody, then all of a sudden, oh crap, oh no, achy breaky heart, come on Eileen, whatever, and it's just playing and playing, and it's like, I don't know, walking out in your backyard and you're like, what smells? And oh gosh, I've got something on my shoe, and you've got to go and wipe it off. See, you don't realize it when it happens most of the time. It's after you've been walking around a spell. So it locks in this mood. The mood you were in when the loops were created is now on replay until it resolves. We'll talk about how to resolve it. But again, you wake up in the morning and Achy Breaky Heart's playing. and you're just trying to do your job. You're just trying to get ready in the morning and achy breaky. Achy breaky was last night or the night before when you were partying or when you were listening to it while you were doing something else. That mood is not present. You're waking up and you need something else, whatever that is, because that's individualistic. It causes cognitive dissonance. You don't know why. You're just going, why am I listening to Achy Breaky Heart or Come On Eileen or Dark Side of the Moon or whatever? And it just keeps going. It keeps tuning up your head over and over again. And it makes you start questioning your insanity. Am I stupid? Am I going insane? Am I getting dementia? It's the same song. Well, no. Again, like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, over 98% of the people get it. And yeah, there's people that have a more prone bent to it, but you don't have to have any of those diagnoses or marks or whatever. Now, the cause, it has an actual title besides earworm, okay? Earworm's kind of bleh. But it's called the Zygarnik effect. The Zygarnik effect was named after a Lithuanian Soviet psychologist. His name was Bluma Zygarnik. So he noticed waiters were able to take orders of people at the table, and he would get their orders right. And he would, this guy wanted steak, this one wanted fish, this wanted lasagna, he wanted rolls, they wanted another drink, and they could remember that until the patrons tapped out whenever they checked out, and then they forgot it. At the end of the night, what did table 23 want? I don't remember. I mean, the guy with the tux, I don't know. But they would remember not when it was just necessarily fresh, but if they hadn't tapped out. And they would keep that in their mind. And why? Because it was a sense of incompleteness. It says when a task or behavior has been interrupted, you have a greater chance at remembering what you were interrupted from. It postulates that people remember interrupted or incomplete tasks that obviously have not been completed. It creates this sense of attention, and you're going, why? Why? What is that? What's causing? What am I anxious? What's going? And that's a subconscious thing mostly, but it starts to manifest itself in the way of earworms, amongst other things. Now, the uses of earworms is really fascinating. Advertising is the number one thing that earworms, as I've mentioned before, are really created, and I mean created. The jingles are written, the lyrics are crafted, the texts when you're online. It's all about the programming of these commercials, and I've showed you that one earlier, and you could remember that commercial, the Salem commercial, was shown several times over the course of a broadcast evening. And I was just a kid. I was 9 years old in '66. But dadgummit, I remember that stupid Salem commercial. And I wasn't smoking. I never really did smoke. But I remember that. Why? The Zygarnik effect created that earworm. And people, their sales went up because they knew how to psychologically adapt on that. 2, training. Ooh, yeah. Thought police. If you're a conspiracy theorist, true maybe, but also just plain mental training. They had students that were studying for tests and exam, and they would have them stop before they were finished with their studying, go do an unrelated task like laundry or whatever, and then come back to studying, and they found they retained the information better. Why? It was incomplete. They hadn't finished. Oh, I've got to get that. If it's an anatomy, I've got to work on the thoracic bone structure. I've got to work on the organs. I've got to do, and you remember it. If it's a relationship, you're going to go, why did it blow up? What happened? And this is if you're one of those people that actually study relationships and you look back and you go, why did that relationship blow up in my face? Why did I not make that work? On the other hand, you may be one of those types that say, oh, well, they were a psycho. But there's often reasons why these things don't work. And the Zygarnik effect is one of those that, in a bad way, helps you mull it over. By the way, I'm kind of coming from the point that the Zygarnik effect is generally negative. Not completely, not absolutely, but largely it's a negative effect on people's mentality. Okay, yes, narcissism. You ever been in a conversation with somebody where they interrupt you? Yeah, but no, but see, because and they keep interrupting you, and they do that so your tension rises, your anxiety goes up, and they're messing with you. Oh yes, don't think now they may be doing it subconsciously, but they know that you don't like being interrupted. Who does? And to a degree, if you're an old married couple, it's still wrong, it's still rude, but there's a degree of rhythm you expect in conversations, and you kind of let that go. But no, if you're in an argument or if you're in a heated discussion, the interruptions happen more often. They shouldn't. If you want to cure it, you give space and let them talk. And you tell them, I'm giving you space to talk, but you have to give me space to talk too. Propaganda. Propaganda is all about the Zygarnik effect because they give you what it looks like, but they don't tell you how. They'll give you beautiful pictures of what the world will look like if their climate change agenda happened, or if everybody was treated this way, or if everybody got this, but they don't tell you how. And they leave this little tension about what it's going to cost, what it's going to take, what's going to be the cost in such a way that it's going to affect your whole family or your lifestyle. And that's propaganda. And then, yes, of course, music. If you study music theory, which, as I've said before, is like the basic architecture of music, we see repetition as a main thing, and it plays over and over again. And your mind loves repetition enough, but what it really loves is resolution. And a lot of these songs don't resolve. That's why in church praise and worship music, they just stop the song. You know, they'll play the repetition over and over and over again, and they may come to tonic, they may come to to one, whatever your jargon is for that, but they may kind of resolve the song, but they've been singing the repetition for 7 minutes because it's a 7-11 song, and they've been singing forever and ever, and the resolution's very slight. A quick story I have on this was when I was first in my internship, music therapy internship, and I was at the VA hospital. And one of the things they had was the veterans had to come in and sit and listen to music in the morning. 9 o'clock was classical, 10 was jazz, 11 was rock and roll. And they would sit and they had to listen to, well, I was very versed and still am in music, but me being Mr. Smarty Pants in music was a real problem because they were playing Bach during the classical times and some Mozart and some music of that era that had strong resolutions, that was repetitious but always resolved very strongly and led to its conclusion. Had this big 5-1, da, da, and it worked and people liked it. I brought in music that I love, which was Gustav Mahler, and Mahler doesn't have his resolutions. Mahler leaves it hanging. So does Copland. Copland has a whole symphony or more where he noodles around for the whole symphony and never gets back to basic theory. He'll play 5. He'll play anticipatory chords. Makes you feel like he's going back to the tonic chord, but no, he goes off in this direction. It made a lot of people nuts. So I was playing during the classical period, and guys were sitting there. These poor veterans, and they were getting antsy listening to this very quiet classical music. And they were leaving after about 10 minutes. They up and left. And my supervisor, my internship supervisor, came in and goes, "What are you playing? Why are these men leaving? This room should be full." As I'm playing Mahler, he goes, "No, take it off. Get back to Bach." I said, "Well, why?" And he told me what I just told you. There's no strong resolution with some music. Now, I still love Mahler. It's very rich and deep, and it's musical in a way that speaks to me. But they needed Bach. They needed that resolution. So how to stop your earworms? Okay. So the cure is related to the completion of tasks. If you have a song stuck in your head, finish the song. Sit down and listen to the whole daggum song. Don't play it in the background. That comes later. Right now, take time out and sit and listen to the song in your car, in your earphones, whatever, earbuds, and just sit and listen to the doggone song. And then later, play it in the background and get your closure with the song too. Move on then to other music. Play something a little more complex. If you're listening to pop, listen to Zeppelin, or listen to something that's a little more challenging with a little more emotional investment. 3, this is bizarre, but it works. Chewing gum. Yes, chewing gum. It sets its own rhythm. If you're a person who chews their gum fast or slow, whatever it is, chewing gum sets its own rhythm, because when you have an earworm, you're set to its rhythm. You want to break that rhythm. Also, taking a walk, jogging, more so than bicycle riding. And these things set their own rhythm, and the earworm will dissipate because it has to obey. It's overcome by these other ones. Puzzles engage the mind. A nice, complex, challenging puzzle helps engage. Some people do Sudoku, some people do crossword puzzles, or actual physical puzzles, rope puzzles, whatever it is. But something that gets the mind off of you hearing that song over and over again. Next one, number 5, complete the task. Sometimes the music is linked to an event or trauma. You're going to have to seek help to process the trauma, and make sure you tell those persons that are walking you through it that you do have this earworm, because it may be related. And then relationship interruptions can also cause this. Loss, like somebody leaves you or you leave them, move away, death. That too could require professional interventions. And these things are not to be trifled with. That kind of trauma, loss, however you want to call it, can influence, though earworms seem really inconsequential, very much so, because it can be a sign of something more severe. So investigate it. Have fun, though, with this. Enjoy your earworms, and more importantly, getting away from them to where you get to try new music. You get to go out and have a walk. You get to sit down and talk with other people and relate, by the way. It's one other thing. Relate to somebody. I'm having a real bad earworm. Maybe they have a little solution as well. And if they do, please contact me. They'll be on, it's floating around here somewhere as my email, and you can text me about some of the things you've done to get rid of them. This is not a complete list, but it is my top 6 that have helped people move on so that they can get their own rhythm back. This is the Power of Positive playlist. I'm John Chester. Look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep listening.